Welcome back to the Sword and Musket Weapons channel. We're going to have a look at the subject of protecting oneself when an immediate response was required in the past, mainly in the field of the good old US of A. So who am I to talk about it? Being a mere Englishman, well, I'm just a mere Englishman who's interested in gun collecting and is trying to show you some of the things that you can get, certainly as a British or English gun collector, which are still very interesting and are totally within the law. The reason that these pistols are within the law is because they fall outside of the Firearms Act, in that the cartridges that they use are rimfire, which cannot be produced over here, certainly aren't produced in the UK, may well be produced in the US, but are not readily available in the UK, and as such, being a rimfire, they're not reloadable, once again, with the caveat that some clever dick in France has come up with a pretty messy way of reloading 41 rimfires. But these are, at present, antique, genuine antiques, time-wise, and perfectly legal because of the caliber designation and situation in the UK. So let's have a look at what we've got. So, don the old white gloves, not wanting to put any fingerprints on them. Now, Remington had been making single-barrel Derringers quite successfully for a fair bit of time in the 1880s, but one of their designers who was working with them, William H. Elliot, came up with this rather superb double-barrel arrangement. As I said, they're rimfire. It has a 3-inch barrel, and it was a very successful, easily concealable weapon. It could easily just disappear into a pocket. It was designed as such so that it would not catch or snag. It has what we call, once again, the bird's head grip. It's a nice, simple shape. It very easily fits in the palm of the hand, literally in the palm. It has a concealed trigger that won't snag or go off accidentally. And this will pop out as the revolver is cocked. It's single action, so it has to be manually cocked by pulling on this spur trigger. They came in 2 main finishes: blued, which is obviously this example, showing fair and decent antique wear, no refinishing, and they came out in nickel. There we have the nickel version. Now, the variety occurs in the models and the types of grip you could get. You could have walnut, rosewood, or hard checkered rubber, which is what these are. You always find a certain degree of wear in these, which is entirely fair. The surfaces that require purchase by the operator really are just the spur trigger, and then later, the spur hammer, and then later, after use, ejection of the used shell. So they work on the principle of the barrels hinging open and in an upward direction. Let's talk about the principles of the design. The idea is a small, easily concealable weapon. We have visions of gamblers hiding them in their pockets. We know that there was a devised device to throw the the pistol forward into your hand, which strapped to the wrist. We have romantic visions of ladies hiding them in their garter or their stocking top. They would be extremely effective at close range across a table. 41, that is 0.41 of an inch, rim fire is going to make a hole, and it's certainly going to make you think about assaulting somebody or not paying your debts, perhaps forcing your attentions upon someone who doesn't want your attentions forced upon them. So, apart from the rosewood or checkered grips, you could also get fancy pearl or ivory grips. Now, in collecting terms, those are worth a premium if you can prove or show that they are actually the factory grips. Because it's very easy to quickly add an aftermarket grip, and I'm sure that happened more than once anyway, in a perfectly legal and above board manner. But if you can take these grips off, were they pearl, bone or ivory, and see that they were numbered, perhaps even just by pencil, to the pistol, because each pistol, each pistol carries a serial number, then you've got a slightly more collectible item on your hands. Other upgrades of collecting prowess would be in the original cardboard box, possibly with the right serial number and the label denoting exactly which type or which model number you happen to own, because that's the way you would buy it if you went into a shop in those days. It would simply be taken off the shelf in a cardboard box, and it would contain the pistol. You would buy some 41 caliber ammunition in a brown cardboard box, possibly with a green label. The ammunition collectors out there would be able to fill us in on that. You might have a cleaning tool or brush. The other way is they might come cased. Now, in my humble capacity as a collector, I have ended up with these two, which just happen to be both exactly the same type of Derringer. Now, over the years, and they were produced for 69 years, which is a measure of the success of the weapon. Over the years, they produced three main types. And within the first type, there are three different brackets. There's early, medium, mid production and late production, where things were added like extractors, automatic extractor, and different addresses. And in fact, on the earliest type 1, of which there are very few and are worth quite a premium now, it actually says there is a credit to William H. Elliott along the side. So let's have a look at what we've got here. Now, they started producing these in 1865, and they finished producing them in 1935. So that is quite a span of time, quite a span of history. A lot of things went on. A lot of governments came and went, but there was still the need to protect yourself and be able to ward off unwanted attentions however they came. Operation of them is extremely simple. You've got an opening catch on the side, which is held on a sprung button. Open, hinge opens. Then you put in your 2 shells. Being rimfire, the actual hammer which acts upon the cartridge is like a slim metal bar, and that moves up and down alternately. Quite clever. So this shot or the next shot will be the lower barrel, then the shot after that will be the upper barrel, and so on and so forth. So very simple but highly effective. So once loaded, you would close it up and off you would go. But now you simply store it away in your pocket, and barring any terrible accidents beyond imagination, you would have a loaded pistol in your pocket. Now, this one has a serial number on the underside of the rib, which looks to be 154. One of the reasons that I changed this one for a previous one that I had, which had a much longer number, was nothing to do with whatever batch it was made in or how high up the serial number scale it was. It was in fact that this one has got British proof marks on it. Each barrel is proofed. So out of all the Derringers that I'd had, and I'd sold a few to various people, collectors, I'd never had one with British proofs. So I thought, that's a must. Even though I found it in America, British proofs, that's a nice thing to have here. Now, anybody with half a degree of an engineering brain will note that the whole thing rather relies on this hinge. And one of the weaknesses, or one of the things to look out for in purchasing these pistols, is that hinge. You've got to see that it's not cracked or repaired. You need to be able to study that up close and see that there's been no aftermarket repair, because really that's, out of these Derringers, that is one of the main things that will devalue the piece as far as collecting terms is concerned. And also you just don't want it. Anyway, this one's really quite nice and tight. There's no rock in the barrel at all. So let's close it up again. Click it closed. So we're ready. I've also got a proof mark right there, V with the crown, into my thumping great gloved finger. You can see the Victoria or viewing mark, London Proof House. Now, so you get into a bit of alteration. Your thumb, first click, trigger pops out. Second click, you are ready to go. And bang, very quickly, you've made a nasty hole. I don't like doing this, but there we go. The next click, if that wasn't enough to deter your assailant, will drop to the other barrel. So you've got 2 .41 caliber shots at close distance. Now there is some rumour that these were used by the Special Operations Executive as close-up weapons during World War II, and that stocks were bought up very much of the later model for agents travelling abroad, because if you were a lady and you were challenged for your papers and you had absolutely no way of getting out of the situation, you fire this even within your handbag. It's going to go through, and it's probably going to upset the German stormtrooper who happens to have stopped you and wants to know where you're going and where your papers are. Now, these pistols, these two, are both marked along the top, Remington Arms, UMC Co. Ilion, NY, New York. Both are exactly the same. That means they are the third type. Markings. Okay. Remington Arms Co. Now, sorry. So I've just told you a lie. This one is the third type. This one is the second type, because it says Remington Arms Co. Ilion, NY. So that is the second type. And that is really basically the only difference. But it changes its date. So this was the second type with the markings on the rib, strangely known as model number 3, were made from about 1888 to 1911. About 80,000 of those made. Obviously, this is a chromed one. And this one, the third type, was made from 1912 to 1935. So this might have been the type that were possibly or reputed to be used by the SOE agents, but that would only be a fraction of the number that were actually produced. So let's go back to the nickel one and have a look at this one. So we open it in exactly the same way. Open the hinge. Cast our eye over the hinge. You can see a little bit of pitting and disruption inside. 3-figure number, 586 on the underneath of the barrel. Manual ejector. So simply like a shotgun, but just pop those two up in one go and out they would come. The hammer, the trigger, the extractor or ejector are all blued. Once again, close inspection of the hinge. Now, it may be that it's been polished an awful lot along the top, but I feel that perhaps these barrels have been refinished and that the frame hasn't. There's a certain amount of pitting on the frame which has not been finished over yet. If you look really, really closely to these, and there is some pitting in the rib. Could be original, flaking around the edges, flaking around the hinge, tiny bit, but it's fully functional, hard rubber grips. So second type, third type. All I really need is the first type. So thanks for watching. It was a little bit of information on the Derringer. I don't know why I'm particularly fond of this one with the British proof marks. It fits over here, whether it was sold to a gentleman who travelled, or maybe it was a bit of a gambler. I don't know, you've lost a bit of finish on the frame. It's not been refinished. This is very much the Victorian blue or Edwardian blue, late Edwardian blue. Once again, a lot of wear on the back. That would be the bit which would get the most human acid from the skin on. But they're very fine pieces. They're very solid. Probably, I would say, ambidextrous as well. So Remington really hit the jackpot when he designed this. You've got a rear sight and a front sight. Very basic. I can't imagine you in target shooting with that, but anything's possible. Two nice pieces of gun collecting, which are quite legally held in the UK as complete obsolete calibers that are not produced and not reloadable. Hope you've enjoyed that. Obviously, there are many more types to look at in the field of Derringers, but they are the classic, most easily recognizable, notable pistols of their type. Thanks for joining me, and if you liked it, please click like or subscribe to me. Any comments or interest that you have, love to hear from you. Thanks again from By Sword and Musket. This is Kirk, signing off.